We read and write poetry not because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. The first time I watched Dead Poets Society, I was in high school. A high school much like the one in the film, elitist, strict, and rigid. I was a timid teenager trapped in the concrete confines of an institution that valued discipline over creativity. I dreamed of freedom. I felt misunderstood, and like so many daydreaming adolescents, I spent my math classes gazing out the window, searching the endless blue sky for a world where I could finally breathe, where my ideas and passions might have room to exist. Then, one day, this film burst into my life like a gust of fresh air. Dead Poets Society. Every word from Mr. Keating felt like an invitation to dare, a promise that life could be more than a monotonous chain of days. It was a revelation, the awakening of a deep need to break free. And then fate, or perhaps a touch of kind irony, decided to intervene. A few months later, a new literature teacher stepped into my school, Madame Aubin. I'll never forget her. She wasn't just a teacher, she was an apparition. Everything about her felt out of time, like a figure drawn from an unfinished painting. Her unconventional style immediately reminded me of Mr. Keating, but with a touch of Scarlett Johansson, blonde, with a delicate fringe, high cheekbones, a mischievous glint in her eye, and a liveliness that lit up every room. Madame Aubin broke all the rules. Sometimes she would take us outside, turning the schoolyard into a classroom beneath the shade of the trees. She made us write poetry to the rhythm of laughter and the wind, as if the world itself was something we could learn to explore. She even had us perform a play, uncovering parts of ourselves on stage that we never knew existed. She didn't just teach us. She pierced through to the heart of who we were and helped us see ourselves anew. I was hopelessly in love, and for the first time, I didn't drag my feet on the way to class. I ran there. But enough about my reveries. You're here to uncover what makes a teacher truly extraordinary. This episode is a tribute to her memory and to all the teachers who inspire us to see the world differently. Let this journey take you back to the timeless lessons of Dead Poets Society. May it remind you to pause, to dream, and to seize the day. Enjoy. Before we dive into the 5 timeless lessons that illuminate what makes a truly great teacher, let us pause for a moment and return to the world of Dead Poets Society. To revisit its story is to step into a tale that brims with passion, individuality, and rebellion, an ode to the courage of embracing life in all its fleeting, fragile beauty. The film unfolds within the imposing halls of Welton Academy, a place where every stone seems etched with the words tradition, honor, discipline, and excellence. To the outside world, it is a bastion of success. To its students, it is a cage of expectations, a world where conformity is valued above creativity and obedience stands in for understanding. And then into this orderly, suffocating system steps Mr. Keating, an English teacher unlike any other. With an unassuming demeanor and a twinkle in his eye, he dares to challenge the rigid structure of Welton. He doesn't just teach poetry, he breathes it. He doesn't just recite lessons, he whispers secrets about the human soul. He doesn't just follow the curriculum, he rips it apart and invites his students to do the same. Through the verses of Whitman, Frost, and Shakespeare, he opens his students' eyes to the world around them and the worlds within them. He speaks of courage, of questioning authority, of seizing the day before it slips through our fingers like sand. At the heart of the story is Neil Perry, a boy whose artistic spirit yearns to soar, but is held down by his father's oppressive expectations. Neil dreams of acting, of living boldly, but his reality is a series of closed doors and muffled cries. Beside him is Todd Anderson, shy and unassuming, haunted by the shadow of his older brother's achievements. Todd fears his own voice, even as it trembles just below the surface, waiting for its moment to be heard. Under Mr. Keating's guidance, these boys and their classmates embark on a journey that is as exhilarating as it is terrifying. It's a journey into the unknown parts of themselves, a confrontation with their fears, their desires, and their dreams. They rediscover the simple, electrifying truth that to live fully, one must be willing to risk everything. But Dead Poets Society is not just a celebration of freedom, it is also a sobering reminder of its price. For every act of defiance, there is resistance. For every leap of faith, there is fear. The film does not shy away from the sacrifices that come with daring to dream. Its triumphs are tempered by tragedy, its beauty laced with sorrow. At its core, this is not just a film about teaching, it is a film about awakening. About the rare kind of mentor who doesn't simply lecture, but ignites something eternal within us. Mr. Keating is the teacher we all wish we'd had, someone who sees beyond our potential and into the depths of who we are. He doesn't just guide us, he dares us to break free. More than just a film, Dead Poets Society is a call to action. It challenges us to rethink what education should be, not rote memorization or blind obedience, but an exploration of what it means to be human. It asks us to honor the teachers who see us not as empty vessels to be filled, but as individuals brimming with potential. Mr. Keating is more than a character. He's a symbol of every teacher who has ever dared to go beyond the syllabus, to look a student in the eye and say, "Your voice matters, your dreams matter." His lessons, delivered with the quiet urgency of a poem, linger long after the final scene fades. They are not just lessons for the classroom, they are lessons for life. So, what makes Mr. Keating so extraordinary? What can we learn from his approach to teaching, to life? Let's step into the poetry of his wisdom and uncover the 5 timeless lessons of Dead Poets Society. Lessons that show us what it truly means to be a great teacher. Lesson 1. Great teachers, open your eyes. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. Close your eyes and imagine the scene. A classroom of perfectly aligned desks, an orderly grid of straight-backed chairs, each student sitting still, staring straight ahead. The air is heavy with routine. There's a sameness to it all, a rhythm of conformity that lulls even the brightest minds into quiet submission. And then, Mr. Keating does something no one expects. He steps onto his desk, not with loud fanfare, but with a calm certainty, as if the simple act of breaking the pattern is itself a lesson. He stands there, a quiet figure towering above the mundane, and invites his students to join him. "Look around," he says, and from that new vantage point, the classroom transforms. The familiar walls and desks take on new shapes, new dimensions. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. This is the first and perhaps most powerful gift of a great teacher. They open your eyes. They remind you that the world is vast and layered, that the path you're walking is not the only one, that the lens through which you view life isn't fixed. It can shift, expand, and reveal things you never imagined. Mr. Keating's lesson isn't about the act of standing on a desk. It's about what that act represents. The courage to question, to see differently, to break free from the invisible boundaries that keep us small. Think back to your own life. When was the last time someone helped you see the world through fresh eyes? Perhaps it was a teacher, or a mentor, or even a stranger. Perhaps it was a moment so quiet you almost missed it, a sentence, a gesture, a fleeting thought that shifted everything. Great teachers don't just present facts or deliver lessons. They open windows. They tear down walls. They help you see that life, like poetry, is full of hidden angles, vibrant colors, and infinite possibilities waiting to be explored. But this, of course, is only the beginning. because once our eyes are opened, something deeper stirs within us. It's the quiet, undeniable need to be heard, to feel that our thoughts, our dreams, and our voice truly matter. And that brings us to the next lesson. Lesson 2. Great teachers. Listen. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. Neil Perry dreamed of acting, of standing under the bright lights of the stage where his soul could finally take flight. Todd Anderson, on the other hand, feared even the sound of his own voice, hiding it behind walls of silence and self-doubt. In both cases, Mr. Keating didn't rush to fill the silence with answers or impose solutions. Instead, he listened, not just with his ears, but with his entire being. He didn't hear words. He felt struggles, hopes, fears. He saw the fragile spark within each of his students and created a space for it to glow. Great teachers understand that listening is not passive. It is an act of care, a way of saying, I see you, I hear you, you matter. In a world that too often rushes to criticize, to fix, to judge, listening can feel like a lifeline, something rare, almost revolutionary. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, not with impatience or distraction, but with quiet presence, as if your words carried weight. How did it feel? Liberating? Comforting? Did it make you feel, even briefly, that you were not invisible? Listening isn't just about hearing what is said, it's about understanding what is left unsaid. The fears that cling to the corners of words, the dreams whispered in fragments, the barriers that keep someone from speaking at all. Mr. Keating saw this. He knew that Todd's silence wasn't emptiness, it was fear. And Neil's ambitions weren't just rebellion, they were cries for freedom. Through his listening, he gave them permission to exist fully, to express the truths they carried within. But listening alone isn't enough. It plants a seed, yes, but for growth to happen, that seed must be nurtured and sometimes pushed. Great teachers don't stop at listening. They challenge you gently or firmly to step into the spaces where you're most afraid. They remind you that your voice, once found, has the power to change everything. This leads us to the next great lesson, the courage to challenge. Lesson 3, great teachers challenge you, but only in their dreams can men be truly free. It was always thus, and always thus will be. Freedom is a word that resonates with beauty, but it comes at a cost that often includes fear, doubt, and failure. Mr. Keating understood this, and he knew that true growth only happens when you step beyond the boundaries of your comfort zone. When Neil Perry dreamed of acting, it wasn't just a hobby. It was a deep calling to express the truest part of himself. But that dream clashed with his father's rigid expectations, a battle that could have silenced him forever. Mr. Keating challenged Neil to audition for the play despite the risk, planting a seed of courage even as the odds loomed large. And then there was Todd Anderson, a boy so bound by self-doubt that he could barely speak his name aloud. Mr. Keating didn't let Todd's silence define him. Instead, he guided Todd to an extraordinary moment of bravery, standing before his peers, words flowing unbidden in a raw and spontaneous poem that revealed his deepest self. It was awkward, vulnerable, and electrifying. It was growth in its purest form. This is the mark of a great teacher. They see the potential in you before you see it in yourself. They challenge you, not because it's easy, but because they know it's necessary. They nudge you toward the edge of what feels possible, asking you to leap, knowing that the fall is where the learning happens. Think about it. Who in your life has dared to push you? To look at you and say, I see more in you than you see in yourself. It's not always comfortable. It might feel like a shove when you are hoping for a hand to hold. But those challenges, those moments when you're forced to stretch beyond what you thought you could do, are the ones that change you. Great teachers know that growth lives on the precipice of discomfort. They know that it's not about perfection. It's about stepping into the unknown and discovering that you are stronger, braver, and more capable than you believed. But even the most daring leaps require a foundation. Before you can rise, you need to know there's a place where you're safe enough to fall. This brings us to the next great lesson: the power of creating a sanctuary where growth can truly flourish. Lesson 4. Great teachers create a safe space. Boys, you must strive to find your own voice, because the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all. In the rigid, suffocating halls of Welton Academy, Mr. Keating's classroom was an oasis, a place where fear dissolved and voices, even timid ones, began to take shape. It wasn't just a room with desks and books. It was a sanctuary where vulnerability was welcomed, not punished. The Dead Poets Society itself grew from this sense of trust. Hidden away in a cave, shielded from the suffocating expectations of their world, the boys dared to explore their innermost thoughts, whispering words they'd never share elsewhere. It was a space where dreams could unfold, where passion could take root, and where failure wasn't something to be feared but embraced as part of the journey. This is the power of a great teacher. They create an environment where you feel safe enough to speak, to stumble, and to grow. Mr. Keating didn't demand perfection. Instead, he celebrated the raw, unpolished truth of his students' voices, showing them that their ideas, no matter how fragile, deserve to exist. Think about the spaces where you felt truly seen. Who made you feel that your voice mattered, even if it wavered? It takes courage to share your thoughts, and even more courage to believe they are worth hearing. Great teachers are the architects of that courage. They build trust brick by brick through patience, kindness, and unwavering respect. Safety doesn't mean avoiding challenge. It means knowing that even if you fail, you won't be diminished. It means knowing you have a place to land and someone to remind you that failure isn't the end. It's a step towards something greater. And in that safe space, the most profound transformation occurs. A great teacher doesn't just give you knowledge or guide you toward the right answer. They show you how to think for yourself, to trust your instincts, and to question the very foundations of what you've been taught. This leads us to the final and perhaps most vital lesson of all: the power of independent thought. Lesson 5. Great teachers teach you to think for yourself. Rip it out, rip it out! When Mr. Keating urged his students to tear out the introduction of their poetry textbook, the act wasn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It was a bold declaration that education is not about memorizing rules or blindly following traditions. It was about liberation, the freedom to question, to interpret, and to redefine the world on one's own terms. This is the most profound gift a teacher can offer: the courage and tools to think for yourself. Mr. Keating didn't seek to impose his views or shape his students into copies of himself. Instead, he sought to awaken their individuality, to help them uncover their unique voices in a world that often demands conformity. The iconic final scene of the film, Todd standing on his desk and declaring, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," isn't just an act of defiance. It's the culmination of Todd's transformation. A boy once paralyzed by fear and self-doubt now stands tall, with the confidence to defy authority and affirm his own beliefs. It's a moment of triumph, not for Mr. Keating, but for Todd himself. He has learned to think, to feel, and to stand firm in his convictions. Independent thought is a dangerous thing. It challenges systems, disrupts norms, and asks inconvenient questions. But it's also the foundation of progress, creativity, and personal growth. Great teachers, like Mr. Keating, don't hand us the answers on a silver platter. They hand us a compass, a map with no markings, and say, "Find your own way." Think about the moments when you've questioned the world around you. Who gave you the courage to stray from the path? Who taught you that your instincts, your questions, your voice, no matter how unconventional, mattered? Great teachers don't create followers. They create explorers, thinkers, and dreamers. They give us the strength to tear out the pages of convention and write our own stories. And so the question remains, what story will you write? As we near the end of this journey, it's impossible not to reflect on the profound impact of teachers like Mr. Keating. Carpe Diem, seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. These words are the beating heart of Dead Poets Society. They echo far beyond the classroom, reminding us that life is not about ticking boxes or adhering to the expectations of others. It's about daring to dream, discovering your voice, and finding the courage to use it. Great teachers don't just teach facts. They plant seeds of transformation that flourish in the way we think, the way we choose, and the way we live. So, I ask you, have you ever had a teacher like Mr. Keating? Someone who challenged you to see the world anew? Who is your Madame Aubin? Take a moment to share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear the lessons and voices that shaped your life. If this episode resonated with you, show your support by standing on your virtual desk and hitting that like button. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue to uncover the extraordinary wisdom hidden in the stories that inspire us all. May your days be filled with courage and wonder, and may your nights echo with whispers of poetry and dreams. And perhaps one evening, may it lead you to wander through a forest, murmuring lines of Shelley beneath the canopy of leaves. Oh, Captain, my Captain, thank you for reminding us to seize the day.